Hello, everyone. My name is Olivia Allison, and on behalf of the Center of Excellence for Hospitality Resilience, I am pleased to welcome you to today's webinar on reimagining the hotel experience, innovating after a crisis. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is a webinar series intended to support small tourism and hospitality businesses as they navigate these unprecedented times as a result of COVID-19. By exploring topics related to operations, health and safety, marketing, risk management, contingency planning, and innovation, we hope to provide meaningful and relevant insight in relation to current small business issues to help you understand and respond to the changing landscape. This series is brought to you by the Center of Excellence for Hospitality Resilience, a joint initiative of Temple University's School of Sport, Tourism, and Hospitality Management and Temple's Small Business Development Center. The presentation is recording and a follow-up document will be sent to all of the attendees. All of the attendees have been muted, but we do encourage everyone to post any questions you have in either the chat box or by using the Q&A function, and we will make sure to get those questions answered at the end of the presentation. So now I will turn the floor over to today's panelist, Lori Wu.
Thank you very much, Olivia, for your very kind introduction, and thanks for SBDC and the Center for Hospitality Resilience and STHM at Temple University for helping this with our small business community with this series of webinars. So I am so honored today to be here with you all to discuss about the topic of reimagining the hotel experience. While we are still within a crisis or within a decline, as some would say, we are imagining pathways of innovations leading us towards a future, a new normal, someone may say, after this crisis. So today's topic, we will be talking about how is the hotel experience is changing, as well as going to change. So talked about some innovating cases, as well as for discussions in terms of what they mean in direct relevance to small businesses operations, especially those working in the lodging sector. So first of all, before we talk about the specific contents, I would like us to have a grand overview of how is this pandemic currently impacting the overall hotel industry. As according to McKinsey and Company's 2020 most recent report on hospitality and COVID-19, how long will no vacancy be for US hotels? Well, in this study, what they first did is they came up with this grand framework in which they give out these 9, so to speak, hypothetical scenarios where our future or the impact of the pandemic is having on the GDP. Within this framework, along these 2 dimensions of whether the virus spread and the public health responses going better or worse, understanding the effectiveness of the public health response, and the other dimension of how this will, the knockoff effects on economic policy responses. On this figure, which you can see are some of these potential impact of how this pandemic will bring about the GDP impact as the time goes. As according to their survey, surveying the industry professionals and the leaders, the most likely scenarios as identified by this poll of survey of over 2,000 industry leaders and professionals, the common sense is probably the most likely scenario to be happen is somewhere between A1 and A3. As we are now moving into the winter season, as we can see, it's probably a long-tailed recovery that we might be expecting, which could be more depicted as in the visual figure for A1. A very long-tailed recovery for the overall economy also goes hand in hand with the hotel industry. As according to their report, if the scenario A1 is the case, the RevPAR of hotels, as well as RevPAR for hotels across different sectors, is now going to take a very long time to recover. As this sets the background for this research, I think for this presentation here, what we can see here is that we probably need to get ready and be mentally ready for a potentially a very long-tailed recovery, sometime maybe even expanding into 2023 and 2024. While this is a time for us to discuss in the immediate, short to medium future, what we need to do in terms of optimizing our operational processes, exercising better cost control. At the same time, it also presents the opportunity for us to restructure and redefine our industry. As shown in this figure, and for us, for the hospitality industry, for the lodging sector, as well as for the sharing economy sector, some were spanning across the lodging sector and beyond for all these Airbnb listing owners, as well as small boutique hotel owners and operators. It's the time for us to think about it because of such a big impact hit caused by pandemic on our industry. How will we need to evolve and change in terms of product offerings, in terms of our systems, in terms of the way that we operate our business? How should we change and restructure our service processes, redesign our service environment, our hotels, our rooms, our layouts, our public spaces? This is a very good time and very important time for us to take the moment to reflect, restructure, and redefine what we can do and what we can operate in the small business sector. And that gives out to the agenda of today's webinar topics. We will address some of the conflicts and challenges going on in the small business and lodging sector. What are some of the experiential themes or hotel and shared accommodations themes to sustain? What should we do moving forward? How can we reimagine the service process to provide customers the extra layer of assurance that we all need so much? How can we reimagine design to promote the sense of hyper-personal control and customized experiences that different customers would want? Also, in addition, how can we provide better design, better spaces, better workplaces for our very hardworking employees? I think these are very important topics and directly relevant to our everyday business. So first of all, some of the conflicts and challenges that we share across the board. Given the pandemic, I think what we all face and we all experience right now is this constant conflict between the loaded operational stress versus the need to minimize expenses. On the one hand, because of the financial pressure and burdens, we all want to figure out a better way to cost control and minimize our expenses. On the other hand, we also have such higher needs and higher levels of requirements and demands in terms of our operational efficiency, as well as the new sanitation standards and so on, that is all going to add us more loaded operational stress at the current moment. On the other hand, because of guests about this general market demand for lodging, as well as for hotel experiences going down, we're now all focused on customer experiences. Within this very relatively smaller pool of demand, how can we make sure that we deliver an experience that is as memorable as possible so that next time when they travel again or within the pandemic time, when they want to go on a trip again, they would consider us at a higher rate as compared to some of the other competitors? Because overall, the landscape is becoming, the competition is becoming more fierce than ever. On the other hand, while we want to deliver the memorable experiences and the best possible experiences ever, we are faced with such issues such as staff shortages. With all these staff and key and senior staff team to taking on multiple responsibilities, but with such a significant load of furloughs, and as well as because of the operational and cost control concerns of such a shortage of staff, how do we operate within a small team, but yet we're able to optimize the team structure and processes to deliver memorable experiences? So that is another major conflict. Potentially, that means how can we better streamline the processes so to make sure that we can deliver the most within the limited human resources we have? Third, this notion of human interaction, community, and inclusivity, it's always so important in the hospitality business. When you're thinking about all these high touch service encounters, when you check in a hotel, normally pre pandemic, when you stay in a hotel in a lodging facility, you do not only stay in your hotel room, you would go out to the restaurant, go to the bar to have a conversation with the staff over there, or you ran into someone then you have a very delightful conversation in the hotel lobby, and you get to talk about some of your experiences traveling around the communities. Now, all of that, we probably need to pause a little bit and thinking about more virtual and socially distanced manners to engage customers with this extreme level of hygiene as compared to pre-pandemic wise. So how can we balance this need here? On the one hand, people are still in need for interaction, those high touch moments, and to have this engaging moments with the community, have a more inclusive experience interacting with other people. On the other hand, how can we do everything in a safe manner to provide them the sense of assurance, hygiene, and give them this opportunity to interact with each other in a socially distanced setting? So these are major conflicts and challenges that we need to take into concern. Now, the next topics when we're talking about are the themes to sustain, meaning for all these hotel concepts out there, actually pre-pandemic, at the beginning of 2020, this year is actually in a very long time of historic background wise. It's now actually the best timing in terms of the hotel supplies market right before the pandemic. But after the pandemic hits, of course, we see a lot of default of projects and a lot of stalls on the projects. Now, moving forward, what we do want to know is that with all these themes of hotel design themes or business concepts out there, no matter it's minimalist design or luxurious pampering experiences, or ecotourism and environmental hotel designs, or maybe it's about this Instagrammable designs, all these design themes or hotel experience themes, which ones are here to sustain? Yet which ones probably it's time of declining, and also it's a time for them to exit the marketplace. This is what we're going to try to talk about here, and hopefully you will be able to think about how do you revise, revisit, and maybe revert your business models and experience themes in reflection of such trends. Well, first of all, I think we want to revisit this notion of naturally soothing environment. This is a very important topic at the current moment. With COVID-19 really adding on so much stress in our daily lives. I don't think we really need this figure here, but this one, it really gives you a very direct visual impression in terms of how is COVID-19 influencing Americans' general mental health. And as you can see, during this very beginning time period where the pandemic just set out to begin, there's having a huge impact on people's mental health. And we all share that feeling right now where everything of all the other different aspects in our life gets clustered together in a very spatially limited manner. Everybody's work and life are happening in the same environment. As well as you have to take on different tasks within already a very limited pool of your time resources, and as well as your attention. With so much stress going on in the general society, as well as in everyday's individual life, the pandemic is really has spurred a feeling of unrest, grief, and anxiety among consumers. So that when they're actually out on the road, when they feel really nervous about everything, it's really important that your environment provide them some feeling of soothing, some feeling of comfort, some sense of reassurance. So how do we do that? This is where we bring in this design concept of biophilic design. And actually, right before the pandemic, at the peak of our economy, a lot of designers and hotel designers, as well as industry practices, are following this trend and trying to introduce nature back to the hotels. We see that in a lot of higher end hospitals, as well as senior caring or services facilities, where they really want to bring in those naturally soothing and biophilic design elements into their lobbies. So that could mean plants, that could mean some very natural materials, the introduction of water and natural light into their spaces. Previous research shows that this type of architecture, as compared to some of the more artificial, futuristic, more plastic sense of architecture, environment-wise, those biophilic environment is able to generate a higher level of well-being. People staying in those kind of environment, especially in the hotel context, they're likely to spend more time in those kind of biophilic lobbies where they see a lot of plants, where they feel like they're part of the nature. They feel a great level of de-stress, as benefited from those kind of environment. And it's not only benefiting the customers, it's also benefiting the employees, as previous research shows that those kind of biophilic, natural soothing environment is able to enhance both productivity and creativity of employees. So thinking in a very stressful, already a very stressful macro context, where you have a very limited pool of team members to serve, also very nervous group of customers, those kind of very naturally soothing environment could provide them a holistically overbounding a very comforting type of environment, so that potentially, on the one hand, customers will feel more assured. On the employee side, they will also be more creative and more productive in resolving some of the service issues. So that way, potentially, you could be able to set up an environment that is more friendly, that is more service promoting, interaction promoting wise for both of customers and your employees. And doesn't really need to, and thinking about designing those type of naturally soothing environment, it doesn't really means that you have to completely revamp your environment. It could mean changing some color shades, or maybe introducing some very natural elements such as plants and water, which is relatively easier to do. In relevance to that point, is this general sense of environmentally conscious conduct of business. Some might say that because of the pandemic, the consumers market are becoming less concerned about environmentally conscious practices, and the marketplace is becoming less concerned about this trend overall. But actually, research shows that while there are 70% of people becoming more concerned about safety and hygiene than before, 82% of people overall from the survey pool generated by Consumer Brand Association, they're still concerned about the environment. And actually, to quote from some of the leading experts in the industry, the pandemic actually provides us a wake-up call to really reflect on the way that we conduct business and the way that we organize our business systems around our relationship and our connection with our natural environment. While there might be a slight drop between from pre-pandemic wise to now, in terms of how we package our products and how the usage of plastics and so on. But when you think about it, if the pandemic is what we say is this shall too pass, beyond that point, all of this pre-pandemic concerns about plastics, about this general concern of our relationship with the environment will still come back. So if you're unfortunately thinking about reverting back to those pre-environmental conscious type of practices, in the very long run, this is probably not so sustainable. Here, when we're talking about environmentally conscious provision of services, this is really about giving consumers choices. So while thinking about customers, giving them maybe lunch options in your lobbies, giving them those packaged food to purchase as grab and go options, give them the choice by asking them first, do you need those plastic options, those plastic utensils, or did you pack your own? And that way, simply asking them those questions and give them choices. On the one hand, it's not going to actually have to demand a sacrifice from consumers' experience perspective. On the other hand, it also be able to help you control some cost. In addition to that, overall, we're cultivating still a very environmentally conscious group of practices. Now, in addition to that, we do see a trend of design. This is actually happening a lot in the luxury hotel space design world, uh, where really we're thinking about repurposing the materials and really reusing these old materials and give them new purposes in a reclaimed production type of format. No matter it's textiles, no matter it's wooden pieces, it's giving consumers the sense of where you are. It's thoughtfully designed. At the same time, it's very cautious protection of the environment. So so to give the consumers the sense of good feeling, I am experiencing something that is of top quality, but not at the sacrifice of our environment. And it's also not at the sacrifice of some of the other type of business practices. To take an example, some of the businesses, for example, they're closely working with those local manufacturers and really trying to promote those local economy while having them repurposing previously used furniture, but of course, after very thoughtful processing and sanitization processes. In such a way, those reclaimed or repurposed materials, they can still be designed in a very beautiful way, merging into an environment that makes people feel very comfortable. And it's not something that's made of plastic, that giving you a sense of it's very uniformed or very standardized environment. It's feeling very naturally comfortable. At the same time, behind it, you will see a good story. You see a good cause behind it where customers are going to think more positively about this business owner, as you do care about the community you are in. You are a warm-hearted person, and therefore I feel more attached to your business, to the brand as well as a consumer. Time and again, this kind of chain effect has been demonstrated in prior research. So therefore, we would encourage you as a business owner as well as operator, if there's a way that for you to collaborate with other small business owners in your community, to kind of collaborate with them on each other, to generate a serious flow of environmentally conscious practices, that's definitely not going to hurt your business. In fact, it will bring a halo effect to the entire community ecosystem, as well as to your consumers and to your own business. Some of the examples that we share here, for example, on this slides, come from these luxury hotels. If you are in the concern of if I am to provide those kind of environmentally conscious practices, how will this really influence my business in terms of positively influencing my business bottom line? Well, to address that, actually consumers, especially higher end luxury consumers, they are very concerned about environmentally conscious practices. And that's where we see a group of newer hotel brands, those new group of animals coming up and emerging out of an unprecedented pace, where they're really trying to practice socially cautious type of practices. For example, in one hotels, this is a very high-end luxury hotel promoted by the former owner of the Starwood Group. And what they're practicing in their hotels, other than biophilic design, other than environmentally consciously designed, repurposed furniture, they're also hosting those practices and having those specific designs or programs here to generate this an overall environmentally conscious luxury experience. So for example, they have candlelight evenings in the lobby every month to honor global brightening, where they're going to lower the lighting a little bit. And instead, they're going to light a candle on those tables so to give people a sense of intimacy. At the same time, bringing this conscious about this general usage of electricity as well as resources. In addition to that, they invite their guests to leave gently used clothing that they do not need anymore to donate to local charities. They also organize those events where they care for the mind and body and spirit, and together with some of their physical training services. They not only present that kind of programs in a socially bounded manner to their members, to their guests, they also open those kind of training programs to their employees. Now, this was pre-pandemic. During pandemic or post-pandemic, there's still space for us to reconfigure that in a virtually enabled manner. This could mean a synchronous Zoom-based session where you have those engaging moments with your team members while they're off shift, or with your guests to work on those exercising and overall wellness-driven type of experiences. It's also a great opportunity for you to bond with them. In addition to that, the recycled and clean filtered usage of water as well as other resources. So as you can see here, and this is definitely paying off. That's been demonstrated by the success of this branded hotels here. Customers really accepting this kind of concepts and they really welcome them, they really embrace them. So when you carefully design those environmentally conscious programs and practices, they could lead to a more favorable evaluation of your business, and which will down the road generates higher levels of loyalty, revisit, and recommendation intentions, which within a very fierce competitive ground where we are in right now is so important. So to quote from Professor Wilcox from Columbia University here, luxury, the way that we traditionally define luxury, is probably needs a revisit during the current time period. Luxury experiences will bounce back sooner or later, or in what kind of pace in comparison with other segments, we don't know for sure yet. But what we do know is Lux will come back in a less flash manner, but with more caring, with more warmth in it. At least that's the way or the direction that we would like to advocate the industry to take the change on. One thing for sure is that those Instagrammable moments or these emphasis or these Instagrammable only type of experiences is probably a time for them to decline. It's a time for us to think about overall, why do we do those kind of business? Why do we take on such kind of practices? So that we're presenting a pampering experience with good cause, and also, most importantly, tailored to those customers' needs who are concerned about the environment. So overall, these themes will still stay. So if you were thinking in the mind of ditching them, it's really not about completely losing connection with luxury, reverting your business back to more lower end economic, more budget-oriented manner. Probably it's a possibility. There are possibilities for you to reinvent your business model in those lines of providing more naturally soothing environment, provide something that's more environmentally cautious, generate community warmth, so that people will feel this is a high-end, well-thought experience, which they will still call a scarce or luxury experience, but at the same time, it's a redefined luxe with so much more care. Now, how do we provide the sense of assurance or reimagine process? This is very important. And it's something that all the businesses, as well as consumers and travelers out there care about. So first of all, very importantly, what we call as this notion of streamlined and simplified touchless experience is what people are looking for. So that means potentially, when you think about a guest journey. So pre-pandemic, I make a reservation when I go to a hotel. This is the typical trip, visualized steps of what a customer would go through. So they would make a reservation of the hotel space. They arrive at the lobby for check-in. They go to their room. And then during their stay in the hotel, they would go to the restaurant for their food, no matter it's for breakfast, lunch, or for a company dinner or a professional dinner meeting. They would also go to the hotel's gym and spa if they have the time to kind of take care of themselves a little bit. And after checkout, they would probably call for their own transportation arrangement or utilize the hotel's resources, transportation services to leave for the airport. This is the traditional layout of the customer experience journey. In today's socially distanced world, where everybody is so extra nervous about touch points, meaning socially closed, intimate sort of interactions or touch points, the more that you are able to eliminate those face-to-face interactional moments in your service process, the better off it will be from customers' point of view in terms of assurance and the perceptions of safety and hygiene. So that means you probably want to really streamline and reconsider, redesign your service process and thinking about what are the most crucial and what are the absolutely necessary moments of physical interactions. Now, does that mean that beyond the time points of check-in and check-out, you do not really reach out to your customers? No. All we're saying is that we're only limiting these physical face-to-face interaction moments, but at the same time, move all the other still very important interactions virtually online. So that actually means because we have less opportunity, we have fewer occasions to have face-to-face interactions with customers, it is now even more important for you to think about the customer's experience journey from the moment that they are making the reservation to the time that they leave for an airport and arrive back home. You want to provide them the sense of assurance. You already have very few interactional moments. Now it's extra important for you to give them information, for you to tell them that you are here, to give them help if they're in need. So that means maybe after reservation and room check-ins, after they arrive on site, during that time window, you really want to carefully understand their needs. So it really won't hurt if you want to extra reach out to them with extra care, maybe with a very personal type of communication language through email or through an app-oriented communication system, understanding their needs. Scheduling their requests, ask them to provide you their needs, demands, or scheduling needs in terms of their food and beverage needs, in terms of their arrival time, in terms of their transportation needs, as well as on-site other type of service needs, such as with gyms and spas and so on. Also, when you're thinking about you being really thoughtful in terms of the weather changes at the destinations if the customers come afar. Also, when they arrive at the airport, to give them some information regarding, okay, so Philadelphia Airport has recently updated the layout, the design layout of the facility. So if you are someone who's looking for Uber pickups, you need to go to this specific location instead of that. Those kind of very timely information points, you can still need to provide them. And I may also argue that this is more important. It is now more important for you to provide those information carefully along the guest journey. So what we call as this in touch every step of the touchless journey. Now, in addition to that, of course, safety and hygiene is so important right now. HLA, ever since the pandemic, has launched this series of Safe Stay campaign. As you can see from the results from the report here, customers across the globe, across the country, we all care about this safety as well as cleaning services. So it's really about this extra layer of caution of practicing cleaning practices, but at the same time, providing such information to let your guests know how do you clean these guests, on what kind of standard, where do you clean, and also after cleaning, provide them this very visible sense of assurance here. For example, some of the best practices from those change brand perspective, Hilton, they work together with Lysol. They come up with their Clean State program, where they really communicated very clearly and clearly outlined and visualized programs and brochures in guest rooms for guests to understand how they handle the cleaning procedure. In addition to that, after every room is being cleaned and inspected according to their standard, they provide this room seal service where they put a physical paper seal on the door so that guests, before they check in, they kind of know that this is a sealed room, stealing the idea from the manufacturing industry where your bottle is sealed, it's not open before, and it's extra sense of assurance and it's very clean. So this kind of safety practices reminds us of the importance of all these hard work that you do behind the stage with your teammates to provide extra cleanings in your rooms, in your accommodation and lodging services. At the same time, it's really important that you promote such practices and you let your guests know that what you have done, so that they understand that you're on the same page with them, you're concerned as much as they are, and you're doing your extra best. And on top of that, and even beyond that, to make their stay as safe, as clean as possible. Some of the newer technologies that the higher end brands they're exercising and they're trying are, for example, the discussion of negative and positive pressure floors, and also with some of the more advanced sanitizing and air circulation and filtration, as well as antibacterial and antimicrobial materials. Those kind of more advanced technology and usage, it's now being increasingly discussed by industry practitioners. So not necessarily are they fused down to the more boutique level of hotels yet, but give it 10 or 5 years, and really depends on how this pandemic goes. You will probably see something that's very automated, yet with high technology preparedness when it comes to cleaning practices, such as this, as visualized here. You have a room cleaning robot who can go into the room and sanitize the whole room without any human touch and human involvement. Those kind of technology practices is coming, and when and how you would like to incorporate into your system, of course, it depends on your resources as well as the market that you compete in. Now, this notion of redesigning or reimagining the space design to present a sense of hyper-personal experience. What do we mean by that? As what you can see here is, according to some of the thought leaders in the hotel design space, with this notion of safe room designs, as well as hygiene designs or this virus proofing type of spaces, the thought leaders working in the hotel design space are thinking about reimagining the arrivals, common space, guest rooms, circulation space, fitness and wellness space, as well as in food and beverage outlets in a hotel. So these are some of the potential ideas. With the arrivals in common space, of course, people trying to upgrade to touchless technology with some antibacterial type of finishes, and try to limit and distance social interactions with the possibility of coming in with more loose and more laid out and with less density type of furniture layout. Now, in addition to that, it's possible that, and also you see that a lot, with all these circulation spaces, meaning elevators, as well as staircases, where people are utilizing color-coded markings to direct traffic in reflection of those social distance thinking. Guest rooms and fitness and wellness, that is going to experience a lot of redesign effort. Down the road, with economy getting better, you will see hotels and you will see new hotel design concepts coming up along those lines of this moving this hotel design space overall into a more personal space with less emphasis on common space or circulation space, or you would say more distance designs in those areas. Now, more specifically, we're focusing on within the guests' own spaces where they feel the sense of ownership or safety, where they feel more assured, as this is only themselves, they're only their themselves within their travel group. We're looking for some space that is multifunctionality possibility within a relatively small space, meaning within their rooms, hopefully it's not too small, so that they're able to get to their pre-ordered exercise equipment. They were able to utilize an open space for both exercise purposes as well as workspaces if they really want to pop on a virtual meeting. And in addition to that, they would be able to have a sense of separation or kind of repurpose their environment's overall themes and setting and ambience into somewhere that's more relaxing as well as comforting when it's time for them to go to bed and take a rest. So, and also in addition to that, it's actually important so that they can have natural ventilation or the sense of design where they can connect with an external environment in an open space manner better. If you happen to work or handle those facilities where it's relatively on lower floors with smaller numbers of floors, this kind of design concepts could be possible. Where you really just want to think about how do you design the space, and hopefully the room layout is not too small. If it is, if it's possible to maybe expand a little bit in your upcoming projects, to thinking about how to design the space to meet all these various different type of purposes, thinking about all these diverse sets of segments, travel segments that you might be dealing with, no matter it's a family travel group or it's a working professional travel group, so that when they're on site within their hotel, within their own hotel room, they're able to do all these different kind of things and take on all these different type of practices while they're still in the room. Some of the examples that are already practiced by some of the branded hotels, for example, Westin. Across the country, they're launching this notion of workout rooms. Now, just touching on the needs of those professionals, business professionals who still need to be on the road, or these travelers who still need to be on the road. So then they don't have to visit the hotel's gym, but within their own gym, they will be able to be having access to those equipments that they pre-order. Now, you might say that my small business do not have those fancy exercise elliptical machines or these treadmills. That's fine. I think you still be able to provide, for example, you still be able to provide yoga mats, for instance, or something that's relatively more portable options, or provide them some virtual exercise materials and sessions for them to access. At least the notion here is provide them this sense of choice, these options to choose from, so that when they are staying on site with you, if they want to take care of their physical exercises and finish that kind of routine, they will still be able to have that option in the room. So that is something to consider. In addition to that, a lot of companies are thinking about this new innovation trend of tech-enabled versatility, where they have virtual glass walls installed around their hotel rooms for them to quickly transit in and out from a very specific episode moment in their life. So for example, some of the product demos or design demos, as shown on the screen here, people are thinking about utilizing this technology to quickly switch from destinations to destinations, as well as from a working background and overall setting versus into a more peaceful kind of setting where they want to relax and it's personal party time. So of course, those kind of technology infrastructure, a lot of companies still exercising or still innovating towards that direction. But that gives us some thought in terms of, for example, what kind of small elements or design paintings that you can rotate across seasons in your rooms so that customers can quickly check in and check out, give them those little small design cues so that they can quickly switch across different type of time episodes in their life, switch between work and life, for instance. Also, a lot of companies are trying to utilize those phone-centric model to present touchless service. For instance, with this hotel app, I don't have to stay in a lobby anymore. I can directly go to the rooms and I can use the app to open the door room. Now, in addition to that, I can pick up the food that I order from your food and beverage outlets. There's no distance and there's no social interaction at all. I can just pick up myself from this pickup system with this mobile-centric check-in. Now, in addition to that, there are also a lot of practices and exercises involving robots in delivering those food items or the items that guests request for to their rooms. So that one thing, it can lower the demand on your operational team, the human labor demand. On the other hand, it also provides customers the sense of assurance and safety. After all, the newer generations, the younger generations are in line of those smartphone-enabled hotels accommodations. As you can see here, more people want to choose those type of mobile-enabled, mobile-friendly hotels. As it's more convenient, it's more time-saving, and most importantly, people have a better sense of control where I can control the rooms, all my experiences, my journey, my needs, my request at the tip of my fingers. This kind of ease and control and autonomy is really what the market is looking for. And of course, the communal space requires careful reset. And sometimes guests, they're not on the road every day. That's while we see all these guests all the time on daily basis, these customers might have only been traveled once ever since March. So it's important for you to be cognizant of the possibility of them not knowing how to navigate in a hotel environment or in your facility after such a long time of social distance practices staying at home. So what you do want to do is provide them something that's very visibly clear in your communal spaces, distance, lower the density of your layout. At the same time, give them this very clear indication of where to go. And that information, going back to what we talk about in touch and during a touchless journey during that time, section, you'll want to provide that information before their arrival so that they know what to do when they are on the ground. So this is one of those future practices on top of what you already see in, or maybe some of you are already practicing in your spaces, clear floor markings. On the one hand, you see that already being practiced. On the other hand, there are also new building design or interior design possibilities where people are talking about the potential of reconfiguring the communal or the flow spaces. What you see visualized on the right is those paternoster lift design concepts that really came up quite a few decades ago. But this kind of design concepts, while there is discussion in terms of debate, in terms of whether this will really be pushed to us given this pandemic or not, I think this gives us inspiration in terms of what we need to do when designing the flow spaces or the communal spaces. So we want to present a space of better circulation of one-way direct traffic. At the same time, hopefully it's not adding too much of a burden for those individuals who are in a space, no matter it's the customers or your employees. With that notion, it's really important for us to reconfigure the space or really improve the design for the employees. Um, With that notion, of course, it's been important for us to be mindful of this wave of automation coming to hit us. It's going to happen more strongly than ever. This is where actually a lot of hotels or bigger chains are practicing with those robotic services. While some people may like it, this actually gives people, the others who don't like robots or anti-robots, the reasons to visit independent service providers so that I can still get this feeling of I'm still working in a human-oriented environment. It's not a weird old robot coming to me with this weirdest look. I don't even know what this is thinking. So how do we navigate or redesign a space or a hotel working process for them? So first of all, we want to be mindful of the work stress or the load, the workload that our employees are handling at the moment. Traditionally, if your rooms or your spaces are designed in a very sophisticated style of aesthetics, this is probably the time for us to think about simplify the environment a lot. It probably won't hurt for us to take off a little extra layer of decorative drapes if they're not really functionally useful. Those kind of dust or those kind of heavily dusted environment, on the one hand, it doesn't really help your customers. Seeing too much of those design elements not really functionally useful, but yet there to accumulate dust, it doesn't provide them the sense of beauty anymore. In today's environment, where people are just really looking for hygiene and simplified and less stressful environment. At the same time, for employees, this means it's less work for them. So then potentially the time that they need to spend to clean after guests check out, it will be much shorter as compared to a very complicated room layout. Take off all these extra pillows that are really not necessary, or in some practices, people are even thinking about reimagining the floor design with more wooden floor panels type of design as compared to carpets. In addition to that, your employees need to be taken good care of as well. So providing them a very an experience, a professional experience in a workplace where they feel like I'm being taken care of, I'm being respected, I am someone who's important and valued by this business. It's very important for today's labor market, for today's employees. So as you can see some of the findings as according to previous research here, you want to take care of your people so that they will feel safe when it's between shift breakout time. They have individualized pods where they can feel safe to have their meal, to take a break. At the same time, it's also important for owners and operators to showcase appreciation and moral recognitions, more important than ever, to create a sense of team, intimacy, and proximity. So that is really important when you're thinking about your back of house design. So provide extra layer of assurance and cleaning procedures there to make your employees feel safe. That's something that's probably more easily to be ignored, but I would argue it's more important than ever. So that is all for my end of presentation for today's webinars, and I am open to take on any questions if there are any.
Thank you so much for sharing on that topic today.